Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Okay, so today we're unpacking a really fascinating, highly specific spiritual framework. We're looking at material from the YouTube channel Divine Whisper, and specifically their theology around a topic that, honestly, a lot of people really struggle with: prolonged singleness. Whether you're deeply familiar with these concepts or you're just kind of curious about how different communities interpret life's waiting periods, we are going to impartially break down how this channel takes a traditionally frustrating season of life and frames it as a deliberate, divine strategy.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The source material immediately grabs your attention with this incredibly introspective hook. Why has God kept you single? It hits right at that very real feeling of isolation. The total exhaustion of making connections that just never seem to pan out. But instead of looking at this recurring isolation as some sort of personal failure or just a string of terrible luck, Divine Whisper actually proposes a completely different way of looking at it.
It all centers around this one massive paradigm shift. They say your singleness is not a flaw to be fixed, but a calling to be honored. Think about how that flips the script. It takes the whole idea of being single, which is often viewed as an accident or rejection, and transforms it into a deliberate divine assignment. An assignment specifically for someone they refer to as a chosen one. So rather than constantly asking yourself what's wrong with you, the framework asks you to consider that this waiting period is actually by design.
To help us navigate all this dense spiritual philosophy, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to systematically break this down into 6 key themes. Number 1, the calling of singleness. 2, spiritual protection and energy. 3, refining spirit and character. 4, breaking generational cycles. 5, purpose found in solitude. And finally, number 6, stewarding the waiting season.
All right, moving into our first theme, the calling of singleness, a divine paradigm shift. The source material spends a lot of time completely redefining the very nature of a person's life timeline.
And this brilliantly illustrates that exact contrast. If you look at the mainstream societal view, singleness is mostly seen as this awkward in-between stage, right? Like a waiting room you're just trying to rush through to get to the main event. But in the chosen one view, it's a training ground. It's sacred protection for a greater mission. Because they view relationships as spiritual covenants that literally merge destinies. The idea is that you simply cannot afford to be tied down to the wrong person.
That brings us to section 2, spiritual protection and energy, guarding the vessel. This part of the text places a huge emphasis on preserving your energy. To really understand this, we have to look at some specific spiritual jargon the source uses, specifically the concept of soul ties. These are described not just as lingering emotional memories, but as literal spiritual bonds that link your spirit to someone else's. And the danger here is that a soul tie with the wrong person can fog your spiritual vision and basically tether you to toxic, outgrown cycles. So in this framework, those past breakups you went through, they aren't framed as failures at all. They are seen as divine spiritual rescues, interference designed to stop those negative ties from ever forming. Building right on top of that idea is the spiritual firewall. This is heaven's protection against compromised missions and drained energy. It's kind of like pouring water into a cup with a crack in the bottom. If you're connected to someone who drains you, you're always going to be empty. The video introduces this fascinating concept that angels are literally posted at the gates of your destiny. So when a door violently closes in your dating life, it's not bad luck. It's an active protective shield preserving your light and anointing.
Let's transition to section 3, refining spirit and character, the wilderness season. This season is all about intense spiritual refinement, which, as the source notes, is very often characterized by deep isolation.
The reality is, solitude forces you to confront things, like pride, impatience, and hidden wounds that a relationship might otherwise just distract you from. The Creator points to biblical figures to make this point. Think about David tending sheep alone before becoming king, Moses out in the desert, or Jesus spending 40 days in the wilderness. The core logic here is that before you can step into a massive calling, your character literally has to be stripped down and rebuilt, so it's strong enough to carry the weight of that calling.
Moving on to section 4, breaking generational cycles, rewriting bloodline history. This shifts into some heavy responsibility, suggesting that being single provides the necessary space to break toxic family patterns.
Let's move to and see how this builds a really clear visual process. Step 1 is to identify the dysfunction. You have to recognize where your family might have normalized abuse or instability. Step 2 is healing those wounds, dealing with trauma that might have started long before you were even born. And step 3 is building a new foundation based on covenant love. Essentially, you have to completely close the door on the old cycle before you can ever open the door to the new one.
And I absolutely have to highlight this empowering quote from the material. You are not behind, you are ahead, because you are stopping what has been holding your family back for generations. Talk about a complete reframe. It takes all that anxiety we feel about being delayed in life and turns it into a heroic, intentional pause. A pause that is entirely necessary to protect future generations from inherited trauma.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, Purpose Found in Solitude, Divine Assignments. This section details why certain massive life tasks demand your absolute, undivided attention. The source argues that even a truly healthy, loving relationship could actually be a distraction during this time. Why? Because you need the bandwidth to build time-sensitive ministries or businesses. In solitude, you can hear without the static of someone else's opinions. You can undergo intense spiritual preparation, like fasting and prayer. And perhaps most importantly, you develop profound emotional and spiritual independence. You learn to rely entirely on God, rather than leaning on a partner as a crutch.
Okay, Section 6, Stewarding the Waiting Season, the Action Plan. This is where we shift into the practical application of how the source advises actually handling this period of your life.
So, the crucial point is that this season must be actively stewarded, not just passively wasted sitting around. You need to deepen your faith and spiritual disciplines, do the grueling work of healing from past betrayals. It also gets highly practical. Manage your finances and eliminate debt to create real stability. Guard the purity of your body, mind, and the influences you allow in. And finally, build a strong, non-romantic community around yourself. The whole goal is to become a fully whole person on your own.
All of this intense preparation revolves around the concept of divine timing. The core message is that you aren't actually waiting for a person at all. You are waiting for an ordained season to ripen. It's a lot like waiting for fruit on a tree. The framework suggests that while you are working on yourself, your future kingdom partner is simultaneously being prepared behind the scenes. Like two rivers merging into one, both of you have to be fully equipped first, which actually makes the delay a profound act of mercy.
To wrap things up, I want to leave you with this provocative thought drawn straight from the material. Are you wishing your single season away, or are you actively stewarding it to prepare for greatness? It's really such a challenging and structured way to rethink our circumstances, taking something that often feels like rejection and reframing it as a purposeful, divine destiny. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpacked this unique perspective today. And as always, keep seeking to understand the ideas that shape our world.